So thank you for joining us today and welcome to the How to Request Resources from the National Veterinary Stockpile webinar. Today's presentation is a follow-up to the overview presentation we held on Tuesday. With that, I'd like to introduce our presenter for today, Andy Titsworth from Field Operations Logistical Center. Andy, I'll go ahead and hand things over to you.
Thank you, Kristen, and hello, everyone. Again, I'm Andy Titsworth. I'm with the Field Operations Logistics Center, and I'm a logistics management specialist. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about resource ordering, the process for resource ordering. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So the purpose of this webinar is for you to become familiar with the NVS resource ordering process for supplies, equipment, and as well as 3D, and that's the depopulation, disposal, and decontamination contracted services. I'll also touch upon a little bit on some special items that we carry that for which the ordering process is a little different. So the NVS mission, we provide veterinary countermeasures to states, tribes, and territories, and as well as and the countermeasures really covers a broad range of things. It's anything that's used to counter a foreign animal disease outbreak. Here are our NVS goals. They're twofold. We deploy once notified within 24 hours, and we assist the states, tribes, and territories with their preparation as well as their execution of foreign animal disease response operations. So the National Veterinary Stockpile, as most know, but I think it's worth emphasizing, is the national repository of these veterinary countermeasures, and we are we're ready at all times for animal disease emergencies, and we even respond occasionally to other Stafford Act emergencies and things like that, although more infrequently for those than for the animal disease emergencies. So let's talk a little bit now, we'll get into the ordering of NVS supplies and equipment. And I just want to emphasize, and it's here in the title, that we use the Emergency Management Response Service system, and known as EMERS. And that is the system of record for many things, but it's also what we use with the ordering process, because it not only streamlines the ordering process, but it also serves as a record and a tracking mechanism for the supplies, equipment, and so forth that we deal with. So let's address the NVS resource ordering process a little bit more fully. First of all, it's critical that you have access to the NVS logistics catalog. You need to know what we've got on hand, so that you know what's available to order, and then what you would also would need to procure on your own locally if it's not in the stockpile. So here's what you'll need. As I mentioned, you'll need the NVS catalog, and we just finished an update. Just this last May, we published the new NVS catalog, and it's quite good. You can access the catalog if you don't already have one by going to the SharePoint site, the NVS Training Exercise SharePoint site, and we'll post a link to that in the chat. In addition to the catalog, which you can access there, you'll need a password for that, which we can provide you. And just contact us at nvs@usda.gov, and we'll provide that password. You'll also need EMERS access, or if you don't have it, access to someone who does. Now, it's becoming more common for states, tribes, and territories to take EMERS training and become familiar with EMERS, and that's great. But I understand that not everyone has that capability, and and I understand that some of the state departments of agriculture are resource restrained as far as their personnel on hand, and it's kind of difficult sometimes. So if you need EMERS access, you can reach out to your district field office, and contact someone there, the emergency coordinators, or the area veterinarian in charge, will be able to help you or point you to someone who can, so that you can submit requests for NVS supplies and equipment using the EMR system. You'll need a list of the supplies and equipment that are required before you get started with your request. And some of the other things you'll need, of course, the shipping address, where we're going to send it, who the point of contact is that will sign for the supplies or equipment once they're sent. We'd like you to send us a required delivery date, and that's important, and it kind of feeds into the next bullet on this slide, the urgency of the shipment. We need to know if it's urgent or routine. If it's urgent, we'll do our best to ship it out just as quickly as possible. But if it's not, if it's a routine request, we really should avoid the extra expense that's associated with overnight shipping and 2-day shipping and things like that. We want to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. So we also need to know some of the conditions that would impact the delivery. So do you have a loading dock on hand? Do you have material handling equipment like a forklift or a pallet jack or a dolly, things like that? And that's helpful. And it will, if you don't, I mean, we can mitigate that based upon how we ship things and the types of trucks that we use to ship and so forth. Another thing you'll need is the funding code. Now, if there's an incident management team already in place on the ground, and there often is not, but if there is, the IMT finance chief would normally enter that funding code. We're dealing with a lot of disparate operations throughout the country right now. That we only have one IMT out at the moment, so most of y'all don't have an IMT finance chief. So if you need help with that, just let the person you're knowing with from the NVS know that. You can always contact us at nvs@usda.gov, and we'll help you out making sure that funding code is in correctly, because it really makes a difference. We have these different streams of funding, and we want to use the correct pots of money for these operations. Now let's get into where to submit the ICS 213 resource request. Well, we're going to submit that in EMRs, but it kind of reminds me. I had a fishing buddy lived up in Alaska, and I asked him, where do you catch all these fish? I was asking for a fishing tip, and he said, well, in the ocean. And that wasn't specific enough. That didn't really help me. And I understand by me just saying EMRs, I'm a little bit like my friend in his fishing tips. So let's get a little more specific here in these upcoming slides. So when you go into EMRs, now just let me kind of preface this by saying this isn't going to be a class on EMRs. I don't want you to think it is, but I would like to familiarize you just a little bit. So when you open up the EMRS site, what you're going to see are these 6 sections. And the one that we're going to be concerned with is the third from the left, resource management. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. We'll go to the resource management section. Okay, now within that resource management section is all the stuff you see below there. So in this case, we want to go to the section category of supplies. So we go to supplies, and there's a listing under there, 4 items under there, and we're going to go to the 213 RR resource request icon and click on that. So we select that. Now, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this webinar, but I would like to illustrate how streamlined and user-friendly the EMR system has become. So once we go into resource management supplies and we select 213 RR resource request, these can be requests for supplies, equipment, personnel, contracted services, and obviously for NVS catalog items. But there are other things in there as well. So here are the basic steps when you do go in there. You go to again, you go to the resource management section, supplies tab, 213s, and you go down and you select an item from. Once you open that tab, you select an item from the the request category that's already entered in, because there's going to be requests from other people when you go into EMRS, and you would go in and find something that's similar, and it just has to be similar in type of request. So if in this case, if you're looking for NVS catalog items, you go in and you find something like that. You click on it, and then you select new request at the top, and you follow the prompts. I'm not going to get into a lot of details on this, but what we will do in the chat is we'll post a link. Well, let's do this. We'll post up a link to the NVS SharePoint site, and in there we can post up the SOP for EMR's NVS requests, and that'll walk you through all the steps if you're interested in that. You can also take EMR's training that's offered from time to time, but I think we can do that. We may even be able to post the SOP directly into the chat. So I'm not looking at the chat at the moment, but I know we have folks that are. So
yeah, Andy, I'm putting the web links in there. I am trying to get the SOP uploaded right now in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Davis. So we'll make the detailed process available to you there. Okay, once the request is in, there's some approval that takes place, and the request needs to be approved on the requester end as well as by the NVS. So if there's an IMT on the ground, it's a little more simple. Normally the logs chief would be the one that entered the request, not always though. And the approval then would be by the logistics chief or designee, and then also the finance chief. And then again, as I mentioned before, we want that fund code in there. And we also like to have a couple sets of eyes before it comes up through the system. So once it is entered in the system and approved on your end. Oh, and again, if you don't have an IMT, just let the person you're working with know. It may be me. It may be one of the other logistics management specialists that works for the logistics center, and you'll know who it is because you've been working with them. Let them know, and they can help you with some of these approvals if you're struggling. So the NVS staff is going to review the request, and it's going to forward it to one of our warehouse supply technicians. And the supply technicians, they're going to check, make sure that the check for availability. They're going to notify the log chief if there is a problem with availability. And then in many cases, we would look into a local procurement. You could procure something locally in a lot of cases, or we'll take measures to ensure that another item is available to support you. And then the supply technician is going to release that inventory. We're going to pick, pack, and ship them. And then the information, bill of lading, tracking number, ETA, the estimated time of arrival, and so forth will be provided to the requester so that you know when to expect it. So now I'd like to talk about a special item that we carry, and that's the captive bolt. Now, captive bolts, there's a little more to ordering them than some of the other supplies and equipment because of they're an accountable property item. So we used ham receipts and the transfer paperwork. It's a USDA form AD-107 that's used, and it's basically it's used kind of like a sub ham receipt. But it tracks the chain of custody of these items. So the captive bolts themselves, district directors and ABICs are who should order them. We don't ship these out typically to very many people, and we like there to be some fairly high level oversight when we do. So the request, it's submitted through EMRS just as you would any other item of equipment, except we you'll have an opportunity. There's remarks fields and so forth. You would have the names of the users, and that's important because we need to check and make sure that the users have received training. And then once that's verified, we will process the 213. We'll prepare that ham receipt. It'll include the serial numbers. Each of these captive bolt devices are serial numbered, unique serial numbers. We'll ship those out, and then the requester, that district director, that area veterinarian in charge is going to verify those serial numbers, and then they'll sign the ham receipt. So then they'll use that sub ham receipt. I'm calling it that, but it's a transfer paperwork, the AD 107, when they transfer that to the actual user. So once the captive bolts are no longer needed, we require that we C&D those devices. We need to clean them, make sure that they're clean, because obviously they've been on the dirty side. We need to get all that infectious material out, give them a good cleaning. They need to be oiled as well. And then the requester would coordinate with us, the NDS, for pickup return. So we'll handle that once you give us the information we need, and we'll clear the ham receipt once those items are received and the accountability, the cleanliness, and so forth is confirmed. So here I have a note at the bottom, and for those who haven't really dealt much with captive bolts, they're treated in some respects as, a firearm, which means that the Lautenberg Amendment applies. So there has to be full compliance with the Lautenberg Amendment, or the user. Well, they can't use it if the Lautenberg paperwork isn't signed. Now, training for these captive bolt devices is not conducted by the NDS, but we can certainly point you in the right direction where you can find such training. Okay, now let's discuss a little bit about how the 3D response services are requested. So the 3D response services are used for decontamination, depop, disposal. Primarily, we find we use them for depop. And we've come up with a fillable form that we use, and it has the elements of a statement of work that will be provided to the requester. Now, if there's an IMT on the ground already, the operations section chief is normally who would fill this SOW fillable form out. But if not, it would probably, I've worked with the area veterinarians in charge to do this, or it could be one of their designees. And again, if you don't have an IMT, I'll help you, or one of the other logistics management specialists will help you get this thing filled out, and we'll provide you with the form itself. It is available. You can find it in either at our SharePoint site. You can go to the SharePoint site, and you can look at Appendix B, as in Bravo, of the state plan template, and get it there. Now this form, I think it's pretty user friendly. It's nice. It's got fillable fields in it, and once you fill it out, you can send it to the person you're working with, me or one of the other logistics management specialists, or you can email it to nds@usd.gov, and we all see that those messages that come in. But let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the use of the form here. So obviously, you got to determine what support services you need. You'll describe the situation at the premise, and I'll go into this a little more detail in the following slides. So types of support, gonna specify that, the tasks, the funding source, and some other items. So let's go ahead and let's just take a look at the form itself here. So here are items 1 and 2. The first is you're going to describe the situation, and you're going to check what type of support is required. Again, depop is the most common, but we do provide other support as well. Okay, the detail of the tasks to be performed. There's a whole list of them here, and I won't go through them exactly here, because I'm going to show you an example here in the upcoming slide that will get to all of this. And then the funding sources. most commonly used funding source is the CCC funds, but there are instances where other funding is used. So just let us know, specify which funding source. Okay, here's an example. So before I start getting into this, there's no identifiable data or anything here. I went ahead and went through, and this is actually kind of a compilation of a couple of requests. So we're going to describe the situation. So the Prem ID is up there in number 1, along with the Prem name of the county and the number affected in that county. The street address and the coordinates are all in that first item 1. And then in 2, we talk about the barns on the premises, the number of species. Actually, the species aren't listed here. That's one error on this one. Normally, we would like that. We'd like to know the age, in this case, of the poultry in each barn. And item 3. Oh, back on item 2. The proximity of the barns to one another, and also if they have dirt floors. In some cases, you get the brooder barns, and they don't have dirt floors. Well, that's good information for us to have because it affects our ability to pen the birds in based upon being able to get the pickets in the ground or not. Okay, item 3, need a foaming contract crew to perform the depop. And this is nice because they prioritize. The requester has stated which barn has the highest mortality, and that's where they want us to start. And they specify that the contract crew will need to pen the birds. They've got an estimate of the number of personnel needed. Any special needs are identified. The NVS equipment is needed. That is needed, and so forth. So in this case, they're asking for 2 types of support. They want the depopulation, but they also want to, they've specified that they'll need decontamination work to be completed, and they've specified what that is, the C&D of equipment as well as the crew. So this is aside from not listing the species, this is a really good statement of work worksheet. Okay, getting down to number 3. Okay. We got the detail now. Some of this is repeated from the situation, but that's okay. And what you'll find here is in some cases you'll repeat things, but you'll get into just a little bit more detail. I won't go into every item here, but you can kind of get a feel for what we're looking for. And we like there to be a fair amount of detail, but time is also important. So try to get the information that you think we'll need in order to write our statement of work. And why that's important is we're going to take this fillable statement of work form, and we're going to create a more detailed statement of work. And we're also going to use it for a quote from the 3D contractor. So if we want to have enough information that they can get a good solid quote in a timely manner on their end. Okay, and there at the bottom you can see that they X Commodity Credit Corporation funds, those CCC funds that we talked about. Now, what's really nice, and it's I'm going to show you a couple of examples in the upcoming slides. What's really nice is to attach to the SOW fillable form, attach a sketch or an overhead view. And in this case, we've got an overhead view here. And the requester used Google Maps here. And they've gone in and identified the number of, just a little bit of a description about the barns, the number of birds, the age of the turkeys in this case, and then they've got these brooder barns identified. Now this is a very nice example. Let me show you another example here. And this was actually it was the same pram. Be honest with you, I'd rather have a sketch like this in a timely manner than a Google product in 1 or 2 hours. And in this case, what they did was they sent me this, and while I was working on the more detailed statement of work, they followed up with this one. But frankly, don't get wrapped around the axle on a beautiful product. It's more important that we have the information in a timely manner so we can get the support out to you and do our best to meet that goal of deploying the resources, the countermeasures within 24 hours. So what happens next? Okay, we take that statement of work worksheet. We work up a more detailed statement of work. We send it to the contractor for the quote. That contractor prepares that quote, gets it back to us as soon as possible. And we've got some good contractors. We've vetted these contractors over the years, and we've had a number of opportunities to do so since 2015. Certainly, once we get that quote, we submit a request up, and we go through this requisition process that we attach a number of forms and information, and it goes to the budget folks and the contracting folks. And the process has really been streamlined and optimized, I would say, in such a way that we're able to do these sorts of contingency contracts very, very quickly and get a task order out. Now, typically, a decision to use these contracted depopulation teams, it seems to generally occur kind of late in the day because it's predicated on the lab results. So what we do in the stockpile is we try to keep abreast of the national situation. So we're on these coordination calls that we have. Some of you, those of you that are in USDA have probably been to many of these incident coordination group calls and these different operational group calls, so that we have an idea of what to expect. But in addition to that, we stay in touch. If there are IMTs on the ground, incident management teams on the ground, we're keeping in touch with those ops chiefs. And in the cases where there aren't, we're staying in touch with the ABICs in affected areas, because we want to know if there's sick bird calls, if we need to be leaning forward in the saddle and getting ready to push out these contractors in a very timely manner. So we submit, and the requisition gets submitted and approved, and that contracting officer, which, by the way, sometimes this contracting officer is working until midnight or beyond to try to get this action completed, which is why I've been kind of stressing the importance of timely submission. That contracting officer issues the award to the 3D contractor, and again, sometimes midnight or later. That contractor then turns around, and as quickly as possible, they get their airfare or their transportation and lodging and so forth all lined up, and they're out the door very, very quickly. They deploy. So looks like we're doing pretty well on time. I haven't been monitoring the chat, but I know, Dr. Davis, you have been. And I don't know if we've got any questions that have been unanswered up to this point, or where we're at on that.
Yeah, I think we are caught up on questions. I've got some direct questions, just some people having trouble for the SharePoint sites. Yeah, I believe that we're caught up on questions in the chat, and I've posted several links in there. I posted a link to the SharePoint site, and then once you're in the SharePoint site, there's also a page that says documents, and it's the one that has a bunch of folders on it. And so you click on that, and then the catalog is the red folder at the top of the screen, and that one is password access. So just email nvs@usda.gov. We'll email you the password, and then that's where these other documents and presentations and the EMERS SOPs will be posted. So I've got those in there, so I'm just working on getting people access.
Okay, perfect. I really appreciate that. And I guess I'm in the chat now. I don't see anything else coming in. I know this isn't the most exciting topic for many people, but I appreciate your time and your attention today. because there are some very important aspects to this. The synchronization of logistics and operations is critical to the success of animal health emergency operations. So I'm happy to be a almost 10-year member of the National Veterinary Stockpile. And I for those of you who've been around for a few years like I have, you may have seen it grow into what it's become. But with that said, we're all about continuously improving. So use that NVS at USDA.gov if you've got issues, as well as if you have questions or requests. Just keep us posted, because we're all about continuously improving and supporting these operations.
All right, Brian Seitz, you have your hand raised. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
I just wanted to say thank you to Andy for presenting this and stuff. It's very beneficial to the people that do actually use this.
Thanks, Brian. I saw your name come up when your hand went up, and you're a seasoned responder. So coming from you, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. You may now go ahead and disconnect from the Zoom meeting.